Welcome to the KNIGHTARISEYT.
Okay, today we're unraveling a medical mystery that, honestly, sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood thriller. We're going to look at the timeline of a luxury vacation that turned into an absolute nightmare. But more importantly, we're going to break down the science behind the silent killer responsible for the whole thing, a pathogen that's basically been hiding in the shadows for decades. All right, let's dive right into this. Picture the scene. It's April 1st, 2026. A luxury cruise ship is heading out from the beautiful city of Ushuaia, Argentina. On board, you've got 150 people, passengers and crew, hailing from 23 different countries. They are setting off on this incredible journey toward Antarctica and the remote islands of the South Atlantic. For the first few days, everything is just perfect. People are mingling, partying, enjoying the trip of a lifetime. They are completely unaware that their vessel is about to turn into a floating biohazard. The rapid escalation here is it's truly chilling. Just days into this dream vacation, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger goes down to the ship's doctor. He's got a sudden fever, headache, maybe some mild diarrhea, but within a day or two, he is literally fighting for breath. His condition spirals so fast that by April 11th, he passes away right there on the ship, and nobody knows why. The passengers, they just keep socializing. Then, on April 24th, the ship docks at St. Helena, and the grieving widow disembarks with her husband's body to fly home. But as she's getting ready to board her flight out of South Africa, she collapses right in the middle of the airport and dies on April 26th. Meanwhile, back on the ship, a German woman falls ill and dies on May 2nd. It wasn't until that day, May 2nd, that the World Health Organization was finally alerted to this rapidly unfolding disaster. So when the WHO finally steps in and runs the tests, the diagnosis absolutely sends shockwaves through the medical community. The culprit? Hantavirus. Now here is what is so incredibly daunting about this pathogen. It isn't new. Science has known about Hantavirus for roughly 70 years, and yet there is still no FDA-approved vaccine and absolutely no proven antiviral cure. If you get infected, the only thing modern medicine can really offer is supportive care. They're basically just keeping you comfortable and hoping your own immune system is tough enough to fight it off.
And if your body can't fight it off, well, we really need to pause on this sheer severity for a second. Depending on the exact strain, the mortality rate for Hantavirus can hit up to 50%. Let that sink in. That makes it unbelievably lethal. Half of the people who contract certain strains of this virus simply do not survive.
Now, to understand how it operates, you've got to realize Hantavirus isn't just one single bug. It's actually a whole family of viruses carried by different species of mice and rodents all over the world. And depending on where you are geographically, it manifests as two distinctly horrific diseases. Over in Asia and Europe, it usually causes HFRS, which triggers kidney failure and massive internal bleeding. But in the Americas, North and South, it causes HPS. That's where the patient's lungs rapidly fill with fluid, tragically causing them to suffocate. Let's look back at some decades of deadly outbreaks. Now, what's really interesting about this timeline is just how long scientists struggled to unmask this silent killer. The span of time it took to piece this giant puzzle together is astounding. Back in the 1950s, during the Korean War, over 3,000 American soldiers suddenly got sick with this mysterious hemorrhage of fever, and 15% of them died. Doctors were completely baffled. Some even thought it might be a chemical weapon. It took another 30 years, well into the 1980s, before a South Korean virologist, Dr. Lee, managed to isolate the virus from rodents and name it after the Handan River. But as you can see, the outbreaks certainly didn't stop there. But the most dramatic twist probably happened in the US in 1993. 10 young, totally healthy people from the Navajo Nation died incredibly fast. We're talking a 75% initial mortality rate. Modern science was completely stumped. They couldn't figure out the trigger at all. The actual breakthrough came from traditional tribal elders. Through Navajo oral history, they provided the crucial missing link. They explained that heavy rains bring piñón pine nuts, which feeds the mice, and that causes a massive population explosion that spreads the sickness. In modern science backed this up perfectly. The massive 1991 to 1992 El Niño weather pattern caused that exact chain reaction. Heavy rains, abundant food, and boom, a massive explosion in the rodent population, which directly led to the 1993 human outbreak. So why does this matter to us right now? Because with another massive El Niño expected this year, the environmental conditions for explosive rodent populations and viral spread are actively increasing. And make no mistake, this virus is anywhere rodents are. For a long time, scientists assumed India was relatively untouched by it. But a multi-institutional study in the Balore district of Tamil Nadu between 2005 and 2008 totally proved otherwise. They found 28 confirmed cases, mostly in warehouse workers and Meirula tribe, who are traditional rat catchers. Even crazier, tests showed 4% of the general population actually had antibodies. That means this virus had been quietly infecting people who lived and worked near rodents for years, without setting off any major alarms.
Which brings us to a major plot twist, the Andes strain.
See, up until 1996, this scientific community operated on this one very comforting assumption. You could not catch hantavirus from another person. Enter the Andes virus. This specific strain, found down in southern Argentina, has a terrifying mutation. It is the only strain in the entire hantavirus family confirmed to transmit directly from human to human. Now, it usually requires extremely close contact, like sharing a bed or exposure to bodily fluids while caring for a sick relative. But researchers in Argentina have documented that some infected individuals actually acted as super spreaders, passing the virus on to multiple people. All right, so solving the mystery, let's go back to the cruise ship. With all that historical context in mind, how on earth did this highly dangerous, human-transmissible strain get onto a luxury cruise ship? Well, investigators found the smoking gun. Remember that Dutch couple? In March 2026, literally right before boarding the cruise, they decided to go on a bird-watching tour in Ushuaia. And that tour took them straight through a local landfill that was absolutely infested with rats. They unknowingly inhaled or touched the pathogen right there, and then walked straight up the gangway of the cruise ship, bringing the Andes strain with them. So the crucial point here comes down to a single number, 1. The Andes strain only has an average transmission window of literally 1 day right at the onset of the disease. This is actually a massive, tragic silver lining. Think about it. If that couple had gone on the tour and then just waited 2 days in a hotel before boarding the ship, the transmission window would have closed. This horrific outbreak at sea would never have happened at all. But because of that incredibly tight timing, the aftermath was just a total disaster. We're looking at 10 confirmed cases on board and, tragically, 3 fatalities. Passengers had to be medically evacuated to ICUs in South Africa, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. The ship itself became a complete pariah. It just hovered off the coast of West Africa, explicitly denied entry by Cape Verde. Finally, on May 10th, Spain allowed the ship to dock in Tenerife for a full evacuation. 2 Indian crew members were flown to the Netherlands to quarantine, and thankfully, they showed no symptoms. Time for a reality check. Is this the next pandemic? Naturally, when a story like this hits the global news cycle, panic sets in, right? Is this the start of the next global pandemic? But let's take a collective deep breath and look at the actual science. And this brilliantly illustrates why the WHO assesses the global risk as low. COVID-19 and the flu, they're airborne. They spread easily across a room, and you can be contagious for weeks, which is why we do those 14-day quarantines. Hantavirus is completely different. Even that human-to-human Andes strain isn't airborne. It requires incredibly close, prolonged physical contact, and again, it only has that 1-day window to pass to someone else. It simply does not have the mechanics to sweep across the globe like a common cold. Now, that being said, a low global pandemic risk definitely does not mean zero individual risk. Because the mortality rate is so staggeringly high, and because there is no cure, the absolute best weapon we have is prevention. You don't need to live in fear, but you do need to be smart, especially if you live or visit areas with high rodent populations. So here is exactly how you empower yourself with practical safety measures. Step 1, seal up your home. Check for any gaps in walls, doors, or foundations where a mouse could squeeze through and block them up. Step 2, if you're going into a dusty storage room, an old shed, or any abandoned space, throw on an N95 mask and some gloves. The virus usually transmits when dried rodent droppings are kicked up into the dust that you breathe. And step 3, just don't attract them in the first place. Maintain strict food hygiene, don't leave crumbs out, and make sure your garbage is totally sealed and disposed of properly. The story of this ghost cruise ship is a really stark reminder. We spend so much time looking up, worrying about the next airborne virus crossing borders on a commercial flight. But as we've seen today with the Hantavirus, sometimes the deadliest pathogens aren't floating in the air of a crowded room at all. They are hiding quietly in the corners, driven by shifting weather patterns, just waiting for the right moment to strike. So I'll leave you with this thought. In a world entirely focused on airborne diseases, are we truly ready for the silent threats crawling right at our feet? Now that you understand the origin, the transmission, and the very real risks of this killer pathogen, are you prepared?
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.